Right. Just move that over. So, going to talk about building a kegerator. Yeah, as I was saying to James earlier, I built one a few years ago, and it worked fine for a few years. And then, yeah, fridge died. So I built another one. Got another secondhand fridge about 6 months back, and bought a bunch of shiny new things to put in it. So, yeah, going to tell you all about that, basically. Feel free to stop me at any point if I say anything wrong, or if people have questions or want to add something to what I've said. Yeah, interactive as possible would be really cool. Yeah. Oh, how does it work? So split up into basically a few sections. First, the things you want to think about when you're planning on building a kegerator and or keezer, the sort of things that you need to get, how to put them together. And then once you've built your kegerator or keezer, what you need to do to look after it and keep your beer fresh, or at least not too manky, so that you enjoy your beer every time you get to it. And then, yeah, I'll give a quick overview of my build, how I put it all together and what I like about it. And then, yeah, I put in a bit at the end about keezers. I don't know a lot about keezers, I will confess. So if any of you guys have got a keezer and could chip in on that, that'd be brilliant. And yeah, I put in a bit saying it's not sponsored by Kegland, but you will notice a hell of a lot of Kegland stuff coming in. Yeah, their stuff for kegerators is really good. So these are the sort of things I thought about when I first thought about doing my kegerator. It was like, how many taps do you want? Generally, that's dictated by how much you brew. And then, but also, yeah, how much space you've got, that sort of thing. And then you've got two options with a kegerator. You can put your taps on the front of the door, so drill through the door, or you can actually get metal fonts, so little metal towers that go up and have taps on. So you can have 2, 3, 4 taps on those, and sit them on top of a worktop, or even just screw them directly into the lid of a fridge. Probably the most important consideration is what type of kegs you use. There's really two options for home brewers. It's Corny style kegs or Sankey. I'll go into the differences in those in a bit. And then how you connect everything together. Two main options are really either John Guest fittings, if you're going to use sort of traditional imperial metric tubing, or duo-tight if you're going to go down the metric route. And if you hate yourself, use barbs and the little Jubilee clips to put everything together. Oh, yeah, I used those at first and lost so much beer. So yeah, that's why I say if you hate yourself, go ahead and lose beer. Another consideration is the beer and gas line sizes that you use. This dictates like how your beer pours and how much beer line you need, that sort of thing. And yeah, the last one really is very, very minimal, but yeah, if you want to run beer lines at different pressures. So say if you've got one keg in the fridge that you're dispensing and another keg that you want to carbonate at the same time, that sort of thing. Did you want to have that option to be able to do that at the same time? So yeah, first going to go through the components really. So the first thing you need is a carbon dioxide regulator. You can see pictures of them on the right there at the top. One on the left is a single output regulator. The one on the right is a double. So this will allow you to have two separate pressures going from two separate lines. You can get triples, you can get quads. They vary in price. I've actually got the one on the left, the Kegland Mark IV. It's decent enough. Yeah, works okay. After your primary regulator, you can still change to have multiple pressures if you use a secondary regulator. So that's what's in the pictures at the bottom. These are the Keglen ones. They're plastic. They've got Duro-type fittings built into them. And essentially you can just daisy chain them. And as long as your main primary dispenser, primary regulator is firing higher than all of the secondaries, you can have whatever combination of pressures on the lines underneath. Yeah, I'll go through that a bit more later. Another option is if you want to go down the route of nitrogen or mixed gas. I've not done that, so I don't know a lot more about that, but I think you need a separate regulator and possibly different taps as well for those different types of gas. Yeah, so yeah, you basically need to double up the amount of equipment that you use unless you're going to exclusively use nitrogen or mixed gas. And then, yeah, final things are you need to get a gas bottle and a spanner for putting everything together. This page that's linked, it will be on the PDF when it goes on the website and on YouTube and that. But we've actually got a page on the wiki where some people have started putting in where they get their gas from, because that's quite a common question that comes up. Yes, there's one local to me. I think Mix put one on, and I think there was some others like Adams Gas and stuff like that. But yeah, page on the wiki if you want to know where people get their gas from and roughly how much it costs for a big tank. Because yeah, there are multiple sizes of gas. You can get little small sort of tabletop one to one which is about 3.5 foot in size and will last you probably about 6 to 12 months. Next bit you want to look at is liquid. So you want taps. There's various different options. So the ones on the right is a standard flow control faucet tap. Again, that's a Keglen one. That's actually one of the type I have. Yeah, reasonably cheap, and you can control the flow of the beer coming through the tap. This one on the left is a nitrogen tap. So if you're going down the nitrogen route, this is the sort of style that you'd have. And if you like to spend lots of money and pour Czech beers, then you've got cycles. Yeah, the one in the middle is the Luca cycle faucet, and yeah, they're like £300 each, which is crazy money. But they are shiny and very nice. If you go onto eBay or AliExpress, there are a lot of very, very cheap taps. The one main thing I would say is get a tap that is forward sealing. That means when you close it, the seal is a ball lock or something going forward into the front of the tap. So can you guys see my mouse moving on the screen? Yeah, cool, perfect. So yeah, in the Nuka tap, there is a little plastic sort of shuttle that sits in this bit here. And when you shut the tap, it goes forward. So literally the only part that has beer in it after you've sealed the tap, well, sorry, the only part that has beer that's not connected to the keg is in the very tip of the spout. If you have a backward sealing tap, which a lot of the very cheap ones are, that would actually be, it'd go the opposite way. So you would end up with a lot of beer just sitting inside the tap. And that can lead to stale beer, infections, that sort of stuff. So yeah, that'd be the one main thing when you're looking at your taps. Spend a little bit extra, get forward sealing taps. The other thing I found, get these little tap brushes. They're like about 40p each. And when we eventually get some nice weather in this country, you get the little fruit flies, and they love hanging around the taps. So yeah, just spray a bit of sanitizer on the end of these, shove them up the spout, and it stops the fruit flies getting in there, making a mess, and yeah, just keeps it a bit more sanitary. When it comes to fitting the taps to the shanks, You need a spanner, which is like the one in the bottom. Yeah, you can get them from Malt Miller or anywhere that sells the actual taps and stuff. So if you're going to go through the door of your fridge or the collar of your kegerator, keezer, sorry, you need to get a shank. So it needs to be long enough to get through the door of your fridge or your collar and have a little bit on the end, just so you can attach a fitting to it. So in this case, this is a duo type fitting, but you can get John Guest ones that screw onto the end as well. The one main consideration with the shanks is they need to be compatible with your tap. So the Luca side pull taps you need a Luca shank, which again is way more expensive than a standard shank. For the new tap ones, they're pretty standard. But yeah, the Kegeland shanks are really quite cheap. And yeah, I think most of them are similar dimensions, but yeah, the Luca ones are very specific. And yeah, definitely get a John Guest or a duo-type fitting for the end. You can get barb fittings that go on the end of the shanks, but again, yeah, tried them, it leaked. So yeah, I didn't go down that route again. And yeah, this one down here is the sort of font setup, where you can screw it to a countertop and basically all the pipework goes up inside the font, and yeah, you dispense your beer from there. Downside of these is obviously once you started pouring your beer, when you stop, you've got a whole bunch of beer that's sat in a line just there that isn't chilled anymore. So that's going to go stale fairly quickly. Never really used any of these before, but I am making a kegerator for my brother-in-law, and he's insisted on one of these. So I'll let you know how the beer tastes in that in a few months' time. Final thing that you'd need tap-wise is a drip tray. It's optional, but yeah, no one likes a sticky floor. Even with the fonts, you can get drip trays that go along the bottom, so you don't end up with little pools of sticky beer on top of your fridge or on your counter. After gas and taps, yeah, kegs is the most important thing they got to think of. Yeah, so the first type of keg, probably everyone's seen these. These are the Cornelius kegs. So they used to be like Pepsi and sort of fizzy drink kegs. And yeah, they seem to be the standard in most homebrew situations. Advantages of these, really nice big opening at the top, so they're very easy to keep clean. You can look inside it, you can see, oh, there's a scummy bit there, let's scrub that off. And yeah, most of the equipment and gadgets that you find in homebrew stores, they're aimed at corny kegs. If you're using the other kind, the Sankeys, there's not a lot that is aimed at those. The main common corny kegs are the seals and the O-rings. There's a lot of them. So you can see on the main lid, there's that big ring around the lid there. On each post, there's a O-ring inside them. There's an O-ring on top of them, on both sides. And yeah, you need to check them quite regularly, make sure, keep them lubricated with like food safe silicone gel or something. And yeah, when they start to look a bit worn, change them straight away. I found that out the hard way. I lost a couple of kegs of beer because yeah, basically the seals on the liquid post had gone. And yeah, I found out about it when there was 15 litres of beer on the garage floor. So yeah, lesson learned on that one. There are two types of Cornelius kegs you can get. You can get ball locks and pin locks. Don't get pin locks because it's hard to find bits that are compatible with them. You can get pin lock kegs that have been converted to ball lock. I don't know a lot about them. All of mine are ball locks. So, but yeah, if you have a choice, get the ball lock every time. The last things you need for the kegs are disconnects to connect to the posts. So on the right, you've got these are the sort of traditional ones that have been around forever. they come apart. Inside there's a screw, another O-ring, and a spring as well. And they've got barbs on that you can get straight barbs where you connect with your pipe and your Jubilee clip, or you can get screw-on bits where you can attach John Guest fittings to them. And these are fine. They work well. But these on the left are the new Kegland ones. These are quite nice. So the difference with these are they're much lower profile, and they have the duo-type fitting built into the actual disconnect. So it's one less bit to fit together. So yeah, less chance of leaks occurring, because on these they can come loose at times. Whereas with these, once it's in, it's in. You don't need a screwdriver to undo them for servicing. Yeah, you can just unscrew them. They're not too stiff. And yeah, inside it's got a spring and one plastic like little spear, and there's no O-rings inside them either. They fit very snugly, and yes, there's much less to go wrong in them. There are O-rings inside the duo-type fittings, but yeah, they're pretty hard wearing. Oh yeah, last thing I forgot to say. Yeah, you need specific for the post as well. So on the old style ones, black for liquid, grey for gas. On the new style ones, it's red for gas, yellow for liquid. Don't get them the wrong way round, because I'm a bastard to get them off. This is your other option. You can get Sankey kegs. These are more your commercial style kegs, so what the actual breweries ship around to pubs. Well, they would more likely use things like the bagging kegs. What are they called? I can't remember. It's gone. But
key kegs.
That's it, key kegs. Yeah, they're disposable or recyclable. This is your more traditional steel key keg. Difference between these and Cornelius kegs is they have a single opening. There's a spear that goes in there, and that's responsible for both the liquid and gas. It's a much more durable design. There's nowhere near as many seals or O-rings. And basically you get these couplers that screw into the opening there, and then you push the handle down, and that basically opens the keg. So your beer line goes through the top, gas line goes in through the side. As you can see in this one, it's got John Guest fittings attached to the openings. You can get barbs as well. You can get some that work with ball locks, so you can get ball lock attachments, so you can use the standard Corny style fittings. Unless you can buy them together as one unit, good luck. I had some Sankey kegs for a while. I tell a lie, I've still got them, but I haven't used them in years. And for love nor money, I could not get ball lock adapters that actually fitted the couplers that I had. It seems that there's quite a variation in thread sizes on these things. So yeah, if you wanted to go down the Sankey route and use ball lock fittings, buy them together. Don't buy a coupler and then hope and then expect to be able to get a ball lock adapter that actually fits it. It just doesn't happen in my experience anyway. The cons of Sankey kegs, I didn't put it on here, but generally they're a little bit more expensive because they're just not available on the homebrew market in the volume that Cornelius kegs are. So unless you're planning on buying quite a few or doing a group buy, Lab did one many years ago, which is where I ended up getting my 3 Sankey kegs from, and it worked out quite cheap then. But yeah, if you want to buy them individually now, it's quite expensive. They're also quite difficult to clean. So you've got that one opening it's very small, and also the spear has a safety cage around it. So if you want to take that spear out to get something into to clean in, to get into to put some cleaner into the keg, you've got to either A, use a little trick with 50p piece to try and force the safety to unlock. I could never get that to work. So the only way I could actually get into these was I had to take the safety cage off of the spear. You can imagine you've got 100 psi or so inside one of these things. That's the brown trousers moment when you're thinking, did I depressurize it before I try and unscrew the thing? Yeah, so just be warned if you ever go down that route. Yeah, they're not very easy to clean. You can't even really see inside them properly, even when the spear's out. Yeah, they're very much designed for industrial style cleaning, where they have very nasty chemicals pumped into them for a long time that you wouldn't dream of handling at home, that sort of thing. The other thing with Sankey kegs is there are quite a few different coupler types and thread sizes. The standard in the UK seems to be the S-type coupler, but yeah, even some of the breweries in the UK, if you buy commercial kegs, will use a different coupler type as well. So yeah, yeah, you can buy these. Well, you can buy beer in these kegs from breweries and dispense them at home, but yeah, you might have to have a collection of couplers. Next part to talk about is the beer and gas line. So really not that big a subject. There's just two options. It's whether you want to go down the imperial route or the metric route. Yeah, it's there in the first bullet point. Imperial units make my brain hurt. It took me a long while to actually get in my head that 3/8 was bigger than 5/16. That's just me. But yeah, essentially 3/8 is a big wide open tube. 5/16 is the really small thin ones. If you use a 3/8 tube, you can get really fast pours to your really fast flow rate to your taps, which is great. Problem with that is 3/8 line is absolutely impossible to tame. It's very, very stiff. So yeah, I don't know how people manage to get that into their kegerator cleanly and be able to close the door nicely. Yeah, so I ended up going from 3/8, reducing it down to 5/16 in my previous kegerator. And the result was, yeah, I got beer out fine. I could close the door. It was all a bit more tame in the like tube management, but it meant that the beer came out incredibly slow, almost to the point where it was like your head dissipated on the beer by the time you'd finished pouring it. Maybe I wasn't running at the correct pressure or something. I don't know. The other option is you can get 8mm or 9.5mm tubing from Kegland and a few other places. 8mm is very similar diameter to the 3/8. But yeah, the recommendation is just use the 8mm, so you don't have to go reducing your beer line down. And if you've got 8mm tubing and some flow control taps, you can get away with very short beer line length and not have any problems with bobbing or anything like that. And also the Kegland Ziva barrier tubing is very flexible. It's super easy to coil up or bend over and just push it into the fridge. It's what I've got in my build. I'll show you a picture of it later. Other things to consider for the beer line, just make sure you get dedicated beer line. You can get vinyl tubing, which is kind of generic. The reason why I say get dedicated beer line, normally they have a oxygen barrier inside them and antimicrobial layers, that sort of thing, just to keep the beer that's sat in the line fresher and stop it staling. Because obviously that's connected to your open keg unless you disconnect the keg every time. So if you get beer that spoils in the line, there's a chance it's going to spoil the whole keg. So yeah, get dedicated beer line basically. For the gas line, don't need to worry. You can use any sort of vinyl tubing, or you could just use the beer line. Save you buying two separate things. For temperature control, simple. Just get an Inkbird. Get the cheapest one you can find. Reason I'd recommend that over just playing with the fridge dial is you can be sure that what the temperature is. I mean, you can put a temperature probe in a fridge and play with the dial to get it into the right place, but other benefit of having a secondary thermostat is just redundancy. If one thermostat fails, like if the fridge thermostat fails, I've had it in the past where a fridge thermostat's failed and it's frozen all the beer, frozen everything inside. Also the other way around, yeah, if the Inkbird fails and goes into a mode where it's like just freezing stuff going down in temperature, the thermostat inside the fridge will stop itself from freezing everything. So it's just basically redundancy. You can pick these up for like 25, 30 quid. You don't need a Wi-Fi one, you don't need Bluetooth, you don't need anything like that. Just get the cheapest one that you can get your hands on. You can even get ones that don't do cooling and heating, so you just want one that's cooling, basically. How do you put all these bits together? So these are the tools that you'll need. Essentially, you're going to need basically an electric drill. Your two options for this is for if you're going to drill through the door of the kegerator. You want to make a 22mm hole. So you can either do that by using a hole saw. Let's find this. Oh no, wrong one. Hang on. It's lost me presentation. Okay. Horizontal. Oh, here it is. Yeah, you want something like this. So a little round hole saw. This one, yeah, off Screwfix, 6 quid. You have to get the shank that goes with it as well. So total, you're looking at £10 to get these. It works really well. It won't do more than 2 kegerators at once. Yeah, I use one of these, and by the time I got to the 4th tap, it was getting fairly warm and it doesn't look happy, put it that way. So yeah, don't expect these to last forever. Your other option is you can get a wood bit. So you can get a 22mm one of these with a nice little spike on the end. And yeah, you can use that to drill a hole through the door of a fridge quite easily. And yeah, that's 3 quid rather than a tenner. I personally would go for the hole saw over one of these, just basically because it's a cleaner cut. With one of these, you can end up with a bit of a mess, but the collars around the shanks will clean that up quite nicely. So it's you can go either way basically. Cool. Why is that not full screen anymore? There we go. There. If you're gonna, so the other thing you need to do is get your gas into the fridge. Your options are you can put the gas bottle in the fridge. Plus side of that is you don't have to drill any holes other than the taps through the door. Downside is you've got a gas bottle inside the fridge taking up precious beer space. So generally you'd want to put the CO2 tank outside and get it into the fridge. There's 2 options for that. You can either go through the drain hole at the back of the fridge if you're using the imperial tubing, so the 5/16 and the 3/8. You can, on most fridges, you can get a 5/16 tube through the drip hole at the back. There's a video on one of the next slides that you can see that, yeah, you can run it through the back. I couldn't manage to do that with mine, which was really annoying. So yeah, with mine, I've just drilled through the side wall. Most fridges, I'm not going to say all because you never know, there will be one. All of the cooling coils are at the back of the fridge. So yeah, you can drill through the side, you can drill through the front. Obviously, you don't want to drill through a cooling coil, so you've got to be kind of sure where you're putting your gas line through. Yeah, so yeah, you want an 8 to 10 mil drill bit for that, and then you need your font spanner and your gas spanner to put everything back together. And the last thing you need is a bit of wood. So you definitely need to build a stand to put your kegs on. The glass shelf at the bottom of a fridge will not take the weight of a keg. You're going to end up with glass everywhere and have a bad day. I have seen some people on YouTube and online just put a stack of books underneath the glass shelf. That does not look safe. I'll show you a picture of what I've done, but basically you just get a single bit of MDF, cut it to size, and then put a couple of wooden legs on it, and that happily takes 60 kilos of beer on top of it if you wanted to. Another thing you can use a bit of wood for is when you're screwing things into the door of your fridge, it's very thin plastic. Things get loose very quick and easy, and yeah, you can even like break the plastic on the back of the door if you're just tightening things up a little bit more than you should. So what I tend to do, what I've done is just mounted a thin bit of MDF to the back of the door, and I drill the holes for the shanks through the MDF into the door, and then screw everything into the MDF board, and that tends to be a lot more stable and just keeps everything a bit more snug and a bit more stable basically. So yeah, this is the basic steps for assembling it all. You drill your holes for your shanks, you fix your shanks, you attach the taps, run the gas line in, either via a hole in the side or through the drain hole, attach the beer lines and disconnects, and then leak test both the beer and the gas line. If you're unsure where the cooling coils in your fridge are, because you don't want to drill through them, one thing you can do, just leave the door open, whack your fridge on high, and walk away for a couple of hours. You'll get condensation where the cooling coils are, maybe even a little bit of ice forming as well, and that will give you a good indicator of which areas of the fridge to avoid. But yeah, I haven't found a fridge that has cooling coils in the side before, but yeah, there will be one. And yeah, if for the beer lines and disconnects, if you're not going to use a flow control tap, you'll probably want to figure out how you'll need to use a specific length of beer line to stop yourself getting really foamy, fobby pours. There's a calculator for how much beer line you want to use. There's loads out there, but yeah, it's not a one calculation for everyone. It depends on your temperature you're going to run your fridge, the pressure that you're going to dispense, carbonation of the beer, and your height above sea level, God knows what else. So yeah, there's a link to a calculator there that will tell you how much to use. And if you want a visual guide on how to do it, the Malt Miller have put up 2 videos. One on the left is quite old. I think it's about 3 or 4 years back. And then the one on the right is, it was done last year, I think, where Reiki just shows you how to put a kegerator together. Really quick, really insightful, and yeah, super simple to do once you've seen the video. Really, it's not that scary once you've seen someone do it. Oh, go past this. Ooh. Okay, any questions so far on the whole build stuff? No? Cool. Next part is, once you've got your kegerator made and you're pouring your beers, how do you keep things sanitary and clean? This isn't exactly the gospel. This is just what I do, and it seems to work for me. So I used to use carbonation caps, fill a 2-litre bottle, pressurize it up with a bit of CO2, and then squeeze through cleaner. Kegland came out with this genius thing last year. So basically, it's a T-piece. You put a carbonation cap on the top, and then this little bit on the side is a pressure bung. So pump even, sorry. So yeah, you just pump that up. You don't need to waste CO2 from your tank pressurizing your bottle, and you can continually do it without having to keep disconnecting, reconnecting, disconnecting, reconnecting. So yeah, absolutely brilliant for cleaning beer lines and taps. I would recommend it. It's like from AliExpress, it was like a tenner. But yeah, after each keg empties, I clean the line with purple beer line cleaner. You can get that from Malt Miller. It's like £7 for a litre or something like that. Advantage of that is it goes in purple. If the line's dirty, it comes out green. When it goes back to purple, you know things are clean. Just give it another few minutes to sit in the line, and then you can run it through with some water. And then after that, sanitize with Star San, and I leave Star San in the lines until I'm ready to put on my next bit. While I've got a beer in the kegerator, every couple of weeks, I flush the lines with Star San, just because you've got beer sat in lines. It's inside the fridge, so it keeps nice and cool, and I don't really have any problems with staling or anything like that. But yeah, it doesn't hurt to just make sure. So yeah, every couple of weeks I flush the lines with Star San. Yeah, if you're using corny kegs, regularly check and change the O-rings. So yeah, whenever I finish a corny keg, check all the O-rings. If any look even slightly suspect, I replace them. And yeah, the other big one that I've done several times to my annoyance, don't leave the carbon dioxide switched on overnight. Close the tank off. I think I've done it 3 times now. I've woke up to an empty tank of CO2. A couple of times when I've wanted to do a load of bottling as well. So yeah, don't do that. Yeah, so this is my build. More Kegland love coming up. So it's a tall larder fridge. Yeah, it's about 4.5, 5 foot tall. Using Bullock corny kegs. So I've got a couple of 19-litre ones, a couple of 9.5, and a couple of 5-litre ones. I've got 4 flow control taps. So 2 Nuka taps from Kegland, 2 Perlix, which I had from the previous build. The Perlix are brilliant taps. They're just super expensive now. When I bought them, they were like about £45 each. Now one tap is like £95 each. They've gone up a lot in the last few years. I use 8mm Eva barrier tubing throughout for both the beer and the gas. The 8mm dual-type fittings and the slimline Kegland disconnects. I've got a single CO2 regulator on the outside, and inside I've got a secondary regulator matched to each tap. Outside, I've also teed off the gas line and got a separate secondary regulator outside because I've got one of the Firmzilla fermenters. So I've got a really long gas line that gets to the other side of the garage for just putting a bit of CO2 in the Firmzilla when I need it. And yeah, here's the pictures on the left of the taps. Got some nice chalkboard tap handles from AliExpress. Yeah, they're quite nice. Yeah, got the tap brushes, got a drip tray. With the drip tray, just loosely screw it in, and then you can easily unclip it, go and clean it properly, and put it back on when you're ready. Next one's inside the fridge, so I can get 2 19-litre kegs side by side. It's just that little bit small that I can't fit a third one in front of it. So this is where the slimline Kegland disconnects come in. You can stack corny kegs with them. So yeah, I can get a 19-litre and a 9.5 on top. So I can have 4 taps going at once. And yeah, so you can stack them up as and when. This bit's my secondary regulator board. So yeah, I've got 4 regulators all connected to each other. Oh yeah, that's a useful thing. Use coloured electrical tape to tell you which line's going to which disconnect. Yeah, amount of time I spent trying to figure out which was which once I had it all together. I did that, and it saves a lot of heartache and annoyance. Oh yeah, one other thing. If you can use an elbow fitting to connect to the shank, that makes it a bit easier for closing the door. If you've got your beer line coming out at a 90 degree angle, sometimes you'll have problems with the beer line whacking up against one of the kegs, and so the door not closing nicely. Yeah, these elbow fittings just make it a lot easier. So the beer line goes, the beer line goes down, and then it's just hanging there rather than pushing into the door. And yeah, this is on the one on the right is outside the kegerator. So yeah, another secondary at the end there, so I can dial in what the pressure I want to carbonate things at, or run CO2 through to the Firmzilla. And yeah, that all just sits outside. And yeah, just tiny little hole. No need for any. If you use an 8 or 10 mil drill bit, you don't need any extra foam to go in the side to stop cool air leaking out. It's a pretty snug fit. So that's all about kegerators. What about keezer? So everything I've said so far is totally relevant to a keezer. The only thing different is the assembly, and obviously it's a freezer rather than a fridge. So most people tend to build kegerators, but there are quite a few people in the lab that build keezers, that have got keezers, and they have advantages. So you can get more kegs in a keezer quite easily. I think you can get 5 or 6 in a keezer comfortably. It's possibly cheaper to run a fridge, a freezer. They're more insulated. They've got cooling coils all the way around. Another one, if a leak happens, the liquid generally stays in the freezer. It's not good that you won't be alerted to it quicker because you won't see a little trickle of liquid coming out. But the cleanup might be a bit easy. I don't know. It might. To me, it seems like it might be a bit easier. When I came down and found nearly 20 litres of beer on the floor one time, that was a bit of a cleanup job when it all came out through the bottom of the fridge. So yeah, I don't know, maybe a freezer would have made that a bit easier to clean out. Downsides versus a kegerator. Corny kegs are quite heavy when they're full. I don't know how people manage to get a 20-litre keg when it's full into a freezer. That's quite a weight to lift up and juggle around regularly if you've got a lot of kegs in there that need moving. Yeah, I get a sore back. So yeah, that's kind of why I stuck with the kegerator rather than the keezer. And yeah, they take up more space. Freezers are always wider and a bit bigger than a fridge. Main difference in the assembly is the cooling coils are all the way around the freezer. So you can't drill a tap into the side of the freezer. You have to build a collar to go around the top of the freezer base. So basically take the lid off and build a little extension on top of the freezer body, and then mount the lid onto that, and then you can drill through the wood, put your taps on the wood, put your beer line through the wood. So yeah, it's a little bit more involved than the kegerator. But yeah, don't drill into the walls of the freezer. You'll knacker it very quickly. Other than that, everything else appears to be the same. Yeah, that was from my brief bit of research into it. Any questions? That's it, basically.
Hey, Daz.
Hello.
Have you thought about putting a fan in?
In the fridge?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I know people do that in the keezers, just to keep things a bit more fresh in there, but never really had a problem in the fridge. Yeah, I get a bit of condensation at the back, but it all goes out the drip hole at the back because I've not blocked up the drip hole with a pipe. Yeah.
I just use a computer fan.
Yeah.
In mine, just run it off a USB cable, I don't know if it makes any difference, but it just, I guess, keeps the temperature sort of uniform throughout.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to say was that I run a CO2 line and a nitro line into mine, and I've got them both through the drip hole.
Yeah.
By doing 3/8 to 3/16 conversion, and then run the 3/16 line through the drip hole, and then the similar conversion then when it's inside
Yeah.
the kegerator. So yeah, that's a useful little way of getting more than one line in and without drilling if you wanted to.
Yeah. So you've got a very flashy gas board there at the back behind you there, Ian.
Well, it's probably a bit more old school than the Keglam ones. Yeah. So I've got like a Brandl's reg here, which has one high pressure in, and then just two standard pressure. So I run one at sort of, I don't know, 14 psi, and the other at ale, bitter sort of 7-8 psi. And then the manifolds are quite a good way of, they're quite cheap. And you can set, obviously here I've got one set to each pressure, and it makes running extra lines, like I've got 6 for the kegerator and then 2 extras to run gas, just like you, anywhere I want it, pressure transfers and stuff. And then you've still got the carbonation line at the end there. And it's probably worth saying actually that with these Torlada fridges, if you stick a shelf in, you can get 8 kegs in. So I've got on the bottom here, I've got 4 kegs. The 2 at the back tend to be the shorter squatter ones. Okay. And then up top, I haven't got them at the moment, but you can get 2 full size at the front and then 2 smaller ones at the back. I've got this sort of little fan lighty thing, which stops me getting any more in, but you can certainly get quite a bit more storage in there.
Nice.
Which I guess would level a bit with keezer. Yeah, I like the small footprints. They're quite neat for that.
I've just seen your comment, Ken. You've got bricks underneath your shelf.
Works.
Nice.
The only time I've ever broken the glass shelf was actually my own fault, because I was trying to force a disconnect onto the top of a corny, but it was the wrong disconnect onto the wrong one. I used too much force, and all of a sudden there was a big crash. Luckily, when I got that fridge, I decided I would take all the glass shelves that were going with it, just in case something would happen. Another thing that I've done, Daz, is I've got a similar like drip tray like you have got, the same one, but I drilled a drain into one of the corners. So if you accidentally get it filled up, you can I just basically plug it with blue tack, and then I can just take the blue tack out, tip it up one end, and it all just drains out into a bucket. Saves you having to like lift it off and like carrying it like this with beer potentially going everywhere.
Your other option for flow control as well, I guess, is the flow control discos.
Yeah, I forgot to mention them. Yeah. Yeah, there's a few of them, isn't there?
I always found, I must admit, I was surprised to hear about issue with the fine line. I run, all of my lines are about maybe just over a meter of the 5/16, the really skinny stuff.
Okay.
And I can run, apart if I've got a bitter on at 7 psi, fair enough, that's a bit of a trickle, but everything else pulls without fobbing, or it seems to be a one size fits all at roughly 12.5 psi.
Okay. Yeah, I've normally ran everything at, probably I was running a bit low. I normally run things like 8-10 psi, something like that for dispense. Oh, we lost him.
Yeah, I find just like a meter and a half of 3/16. So I've just got picnic taps in mine. I just have the kegs in with picnic taps attached on about 4 foot of 3/16, and it seems fairly okay. It could be slow if the pressure's a bit low. It is slow, but we're around 12-15 psi. Seems to work okay.
Yeah, with mine, I've literally got the length of beer line I need to open the door and have get the back of the fridge. It's probably not even half a meter. I just kind of figured the less line I could have, the less beer would be sitting in the lines getting stale.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's the other thing about the 3/16 is, you know, a metre and a half of that's probably only got 30
not a lot
mils
of beer, yeah.
of beer in it, maybe 100 mil at the most.
Yeah. But yeah, flow control taps work fine with even that shorter line.
Yeah, the only thing with the flow control is you wouldn't be able to stack the keg because they'd be too tall, wouldn't they?
Mm.
And that's another consideration. I notice your cornies have got the cutouts by the posts, so you can take them straight out. Some of mine, they've got handles by the
I had one like that. It was a pain in the backside.
Mine did have that until the other week when I took it around a mate's house with the low profile disconnects for his party, and I realised, oh shit, they're not gonna fit on. So one Stanley knife later, and mine is now.
Yeah, I've thought about that. Yeah.
It's not the handle. There's a couple of proper handles, but the bits by where the disconnects are little just sort of 2-inch holes.
It's not very thick, is it?
No.
And you've also got the option for the Oxbar kegs now as well, the little 9-litre things. So you could fit quite a few of those in if you were going to go down that route.
27 taps.
I definitely don't brew enough for that.
Yeah, just a quick question, seeing as I'm going through a build. I think it's 3/16 line I have planning for my serving taps. And what kind of length are we talking about here, just off the cuff? I mean, I was assuming about a meter.
Yeah, I've got about a metre and a half in mine. Thing is, you just cut around 2 meters for each one, see how it is, and then cut off, quarter of a meter. Try it again. If it's too slow, you just kind of balance it like that.
Yeah, I've got flow control taps as well, so I've got a lot without before I start getting the knives out.
Yeah, I got the same setup as Joe by the sound of it. It's about 1.5 meters and 3/16. I've got flow control taps as well, and to be honest with you, with that sort of 1.5 meters and 3/16, the flow control makes hardly any difference. I suppose if I did have like a 3/8 coming straight onto it, then I'd see more of a difference in the flow control. So although I've got the flow control option, it's kind of a bit redundant because I'm using 1.5 meters of the 3/16 line.
Yeah, I think the flow control, I got a flow control Nuka tap that I pop onto. If I'm fermenting under pressure, taking samples is a bit of a pain. So I just pop a flow control Nuka tap onto it, so I could take a sample to measure gravity or like check progress. So I've got one of those taps that's very mobile around and gets dipped in star sun a lot, and then everything else is just ready for the build out. And I suppose getting back to one of your earlier questions on, like, I use Sankey's because I've got relatives that went through demolishing an old hotel or something like that, and look what they found in the basement. So that made my choice of kegging for me. But the cleaning of them, there's the bucket blasters, a product out there that's good for both Cornies and Sankey's, but even just a regular bucket and like a submersible water butt pump is absolutely fantastic. And I put a spray ball on it, but actually most water butt pumps are so powerful that the spray ball is probably unnecessary. It'll just essentially jet onto an inverted keg and completely immerse the solution. And then whatever you choose to clean it is usually sufficient. without having to use any nasty chemicals, and then maybe do it all again with the spear attached to get the entire beer flow cleaned out. I have had some infections. I got a nice strain of house Brett there for a while, but it was actually isolated to particular kegs and lines. So I wasn't doing too bad with the cleaning.
Just a point here on the that using MDF for shelves, you're taking a bit of a risk there because the material absorbs moisture and eventually it's going to lose its integrity. So if you do use that, you'd want to keep an eye on how strong those shelves are. I mean, it might take a long time before it goes, but it will do eventually.
Yeah, my original shelf is about 6 years old and going strong at the moment, but yeah.
Yeah, any liquid that gets on MDF, it causes it to swell, and that may or may not matter. But yeah, it does not like water so much or liquid.
Yeah, in my keezer build, I had an MDF collar that I made. It turned out to be too big. It's even though it's painted, there should be some water barrier. If your collar is going to get wet, that's going to deform and it's going to break the seal. So you're going to have. So basically, I'm going into B&Q and just get something made out of like joist supports or something like that. Maybe go for a 6 centimeter collar rather than like 10 or 15, which is what I currently had. And having it a bit shorter is probably better. Lifting the kegs into the keezer is hard unless it's really set up for it. If you then add like 10, 15 centimeters of collar onto that, that's just, your back isn't going to reward you for that.
Yeah.
Kind of need a step ladder or something, don't you? Like, so you can at least get up the steps to get them in. And if you get a big enough keezer, then you could have steps on the inside as well.
It sounds like we're all getting old kind of problem, but when you start shoving them in a dark shed in winter, it's like you're going, oh man, this is going to end really badly.
I'm about to fit one of those winches for getting the malt pipe out of the Bruzilla thingy, and yeah, because it's killing me. Terrible. Let's get down the gym. Although the winch is cheaper.
Well, actually, that reminds me, I've got an extensible step ladder that I use for my brew day for getting like my grain bag out of the beer, and it would actually do a similar job for loading kegs. Thanks for that, Ian. Save me a trip to the
Cool. Anyone else?
One question I was going to, or suggestion I had was, with the idea of the taps that come out of a font. It's not something that I'd want to do personally, but for if you wanted to keep, obviously you talked about the beer in them is not going to stay cool, but if you had some kind of like sort of insulating material around that.
Yeah, they have insulation built into it.
Yeah, but then I guess that, if you put something else around it, it would sort of obviate the point of having like sort of shiny brushed chrome or whatever, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. He wanted shiny brushed, stainless steel things sitting
Yeah,
on
yeah.
top. So it's like, okay.
Just get a nice, lovely looking font and then stick like loads of styrofoam and stuff around it, and yeah.
Bricks, lots of bricks as well. Okay.
Yeah, it's only been dispensing cause light, so it'll be fine.
Yeah, with professional fonts, don't they have active cooling of those fonts though, don't they?
Yeah.
Is that something you could retrofit yourself?
Yeah, some of the coolers, the cooler I've got, which I think's meant for Guinness, has a separate in and out. I think they call it Python line, and so the pipes are. It keeps the actual tap itself in some places cold. So the whole idea is your tap itself is actually kept at cool temperature as well. So you could run a Python line, but that would need a chiller then. So which sort of gets rid of the point.
It's the object there.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a similar design because my keezer, I'm not going to have the taps on the collar. I'm going to run them out in umbilical into a separate serve thing. So I'm back to the warm font problem, and I've been wondering about essentially just having a small pump inside the keezer that's going to circulate cool liquids up the umbilical line, out around the taps, and maybe might give some benefit to it. But you know, I think that might be the plan. That might be the phase 2 builds where I start to amend a few things. But
what you want to do is to run lots of cold liquid through the tap all the time. You know, something like beer. Just a thought.
Just drink a lot. Yeah, don't let it warm up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think a pump with a 2 or 3 litre reservoir of glycol.
Yeah.
That would be easy
circulating
to do.
through it, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I might put some stuff in there and not use it. Just you know, rather than pulling lines apart, you know, just have a small coolant line going up to your tap dispense system, something like that. That might, you know, for the days when you only want one beer.
That's why I've got the picnic taps. I leave those connected inside the fridge, and then if I'm having a party, that's when I connect up the bar mounted font to be, you know, to show off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it does look quite shiny.
What's it like using the picnic taps then to dispense? Are they?
It's fine.
Right.
Yeah, just with like about 1.5 meters or 4 foot-ish of 3/16.
I break those taps all the time. The little spigots that I just kill them. I don't know whether it's just me, but the first picnic tap I had lasted me about 10 years, and then that finally went, and I bought another one, and the spigots on it went after I'd used it about a handful of times. Then I bought another one, and the same thing happened again. As the the plastic that's been used to make these things changed or something.
Yeah.
And in the end, I took Mark Sanderson's advice and bought a job lot of the actual little screw-in tap bits. So if I break a couple of spigots, I can just replace the tap bit. I think I bought a bag of like 10 or something for not very much money on AliExpress. And yeah, subsequently, and I broke another one the other day. But yeah, I only ever use the party tap if I want to take a quick sample from a keg and it's not hooked up to any of my lines. But yeah, I think they're all right. You just got to press the tap down enough, because if you don't, you end up just with a glass of foam, don't you?
Yeah, but it's quite good if you want to get a head on your beer. You pour it normally and then just squeeze it out at the end. You get a nice topping.
Yeah.
And do a check pour with a picnic tap.
They're really useful for that. If you like bung a load of extra CO2 in the top of the keg, get a nice bit of foam on the top.
Yeah.
You
can fit bit of 3/8 fits quite nicely on the nozzle. So if you want to fill up a bottle quickly, you just stick that in and whack it in. It's quite good.
Done that.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Also useful if you've got a sour beer and you don't want to run that through your tap.
Yeah. Talking of picnic taps, I might go and use it now.
Just don't stick it out like Ken does, because they break then.
Yes.
Press it too hard, Joe.
No, it comes out at the same speed if you press it hard or lightly. It doesn't get faster.
What are you pouring out of yours, Joe?
This is the last bit of the beer I brewed for my mate's party the other day. Annoyingly, they didn't quite. There's about 2 or 3 pints left in the bottom of the keg.
All right. What is
Just
it?
trying to polish that off. It's meant to be a golden ale, but it's more of American pale. It's a bit hoppier than a golden ale should be.
Good.